था कि राज्यसभा सांसद बनूंगी।
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
NDTV shines with 38 prestigious wins at the News Television Awards 2024. Powerful journalism to cutting-edge digital innovation, production excellence to regional leadership. NDTV sets the benchmark. 38 awards, each a testament to your trust in NDTV. NDTV stands for trust. NDTV proudly upholds its legacy of trust and credibility. According to the prestigious Reuters Institute's Digital News Report 2024, NDTV is the top-most news platform in the country. Number one in both online and offline reach in India, beating all its competition. NDTV stands for trust.
New day, new show, a new experience. Start your day with the news, not views. We bring you stories that matter and impact your lives. News that informs and
You are watching the World 24/7 on the NDTV network. I'm Parmeshwar Brava. Let's begin with the top stories you need to know. Ajit Doval is in Beijing for India-China Special Representative talks. He is expected to raise pending issues related to the line of actual control during a meeting with the Chinese Foreign Minister. US and Israeli officials have been expressing growing optimism that negotiations brokered by Egypt and Qatar could produce a deal by the end of the month. However, uncertainty surrounded Netanyahu's whereabouts after sources briefed on talks about the ceasefire said he was traveling to Cairo, but his office said he was on the northern border with Syria. Well, Israeli and US officials are increasingly concerned over Turkey's rising influence in Syria. The sudden fall of Bashar al-Assad has strengthened Turkey's hand in this region. In a significant diplomatic development, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian is set to attend a major summit of leading Muslim nations in Egypt this Thursday. This actually marks the first visit by an Iranian president to Egypt in over a decade. Elon Musk has met Nigel Farage and Nick Candy, Reform UK's new treasurer, at Donald Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago, reviving speculation the tech billionaire could fund the hard right party from the UK. Well, our big focus, Ajit Doval is in Beijing for India-China Special Representative talks. Now, he is expected to raise pending issues related to the line of actual control during a meeting with the Chinese Foreign Minister there. But for further clarity on the matter, we're joined by Brahma Jalani, Strategic Affairs expert at the moment. Thank you so much, sir, for making time for us. We know the disengagement agreement that was signed back in October has been hailed as a breakthrough. But, sir, do you see any challenges on the radar that could undermine this agreement as Mr. Ajit Doval touches down ahead of his meeting with the Chinese foreign minister?
Despite the positive developments that we have seen since Prime Minister Modi met with President Xi Jinping on October 24th, the border situation along the Himalayas remains abnormal. Even now, they are up to 120,000 Chinese troops deployed all along the India frontier from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh. So in other words, Indian soldiers forward deployed against China are going through their fifth brutal Himalayan winter. So the eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation in Depsang and in Demchok in Ladakh may have ended, but the larger military standoff between India and China still continues, and the task of the two special representatives when they meet today is to end this abnormal situation along the Indo-Tibetan frontier.
So as far as our Prime Minister and President Xi Jinping's meeting is concerned in Kazan, how significant do you think that bilateral meeting was in changing the trajectory of this relationship? And do you think it paved the way for a more cooperative future, or would you argue that it was merely symbolic?
It was a breakthrough. It represented a climb down by President Xi Jinping. After all, there could be no progress toward diffusing the border standoff if China retained its hardline position. So the agreement or the understanding reached on October 24th when Modi and Xi Jinping met represented clearly concessions on China's part. But there's no clarity as yet as to what precisely was agreed. In any case, the meeting between the two special representatives today is to flesh out that understanding reached on October 24th.
Right.
The loose ends have to be tied up, and the standoff between rival troops that persists now, that standoff has to finally end. And that means de-induction of forces, because to return to the normal situation that prevailed before 2020, it would mean that China would have to pull back the large numbers of forces that it deploys in combat-ready positions against India.
Right. Well, in the past also, sir, both India and China have relied on military confidence-building measures to manage tensions. But how feasible would you say it is to implement such measures in the current climate, especially with rising nationalism, as well as strategic competition in both countries?
Some background is very important. India and China had a series of border management and border peace agreements. These were binding agreements between two sovereign nations. So when China encroached on Indian borderlands in eastern Ladakh in April 2020, it violated each and every of those bilateral agreements.
Yes.
So if a country can violate binding bilateral agreements, confidence-building measures of any kind are not going to be the answer. So this is the challenge for India, that while India seeks restoration of normalcy along the traditional Indo-Tibetan frontier, it cannot forget its bitter experiences in dealing with China over the years. And the situation since 2020 is actually a reminder for India of earlier crises with China, including what happened in the lead up to the Chinese military attack on India in 1962. So India will have to remain on guard, irrespective of whatever is agreed upon, because you cannot rely on China honoring its word.
As always, sir, thank you so much for joining us with your insight. We will, of course, revert you for regular updates as and how the day progresses with Mr. Doval's meeting. But as Ajit Doval reached Beijing for talks between the special representatives of the two countries, China said it is ready to work with India to deliver on important common understandings that are reached between our two leaders and enhance mutual trust and mutual confidence. Listen in to China's reaction.
中方愿同印方一道，落实好两国领导人重要共识，相互尊重彼此的核心利益和重大关切，通过对话沟通增进互信，秉持诚意、诚信，妥处分歧，推动两国关系早日重回稳定健康的发展轨道。
My colleague Mohammad Ghazali has been tracking all the finer details for us. He joins us live at the moment. Ghazali, the Chinese Foreign Ministry statements, though, have not made any reference to the military standoff along the LAC in eastern Ladakh, but focused on important common understandings and honoring commitments.
Yeah, because this entire meeting which is going to take place between Mr. Doval and the Foreign Minister of China will not just talk about the border dispute, though that would be the center of this entire discussion.
Right.
But as per the sources, there would be other issues which will also come up for discussion. Like there will be a discussion over connectivity issue, Mansarovar Yatra. There will be talks about trade issue, investment issue, because what we have seen in the last 6 months or so, say in the last 3 months since the BRICS summit on the sidelines of which the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi and Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, had the first bilateral talks in the last 5 years. And since then, this is in the last 5 years, first time we are going to have this first special representatives meeting. This just shows the kind of development we have seen, or the diplomatic standoff which continued for the last 5 years. Now there is a breakthrough that India and Chinese officials, they are after Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar, Prime Minister Mr. Modi, his counterparts in China, and now the special representative Mr. Doval and the Foreign Minister of China are going to sit down for a discussion, shows that somewhere both the parties are looking for a resolution. And that is why back channel talks went on for the last 5 years. That is why we have reached such a point now. And from here onwards, both the countries are showing a kind of intent that is that the dispute between India and China should now move beyond that entire border dispute. And that is why this is happening. Though the hawks just say that we have to be very cautious with China, its commitments, or whatever the border dispute is there. But this certainly shows a positive intent from both sides. And in this meeting, it will not just talk about the border dispute, but there will be talks about trade and investment. There will be talks about connectivity issue between India and China, about the pilgrims who go for the Mansarovar Yatra. And these issues will also come up. So we are expecting that after this meeting, perhaps a statement will be issued from both the foreign ministries from India and China, and we'll hear more about talks rather than just about the border dispute or resolving the border dispute.
As always, Ghazali, thanks so much for joining us with that detailed update. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that Israeli forces will remain in a buffer zone along the Syrian border, which was seized after the ousting of Syrian President Bashar Assad. Netanyahu has emphasized that Israeli troops will stay there until a new arrangement is made that guarantees Israel's security. In fact, speaking from Mount Hermon, which is actually located inside Syria, about 10 kilometers from the Israel-held Golan Heights, Mr. Netanyahu highlighted the strategic importance of the area. Now, this actually marks a historic moment, as it appears to be the first time that a sitting Israeli leader has visited this far into Syria. In fact, the Israeli Prime Minister also noted that he had stood on the same mountaintop 53 years ago as a soldier, but the area's significance to Israel's security has only grown in light of recent events. Meanwhile, Russia's parliament passed a new law that could have significant diplomatic implications. This law allows courts to suspend bans on groups designated by Moscow as terrorist organizations, potentially paving the way for Russia to normalize relations with Afghan Taliban and possibly with Syria's new leadership. Currently, no country officially recognizes the Taliban government in Afghanistan, which actually took control back in 2021 in August, following the US's chaotic withdrawal after 2 decades of conflict. This law, though, enables suspension of bans on groups labeled as terrorists. As always, news and updates continue in a moment, right after this very short break. Do stay tuned.
A festival of faith. spiritual festival. The divine dip at the spiritual Sangam. A sacred confluence of faith, culture and heritage. NDTV's mega coverage of the Mega Fest. NDTV at Mahakumbh 2025.
We are able to maintain the democratic fabric and the democratic system.
I want to do something that can make a difference.
लगातार जनता की आवाज को सरकार तक पहुंचाने का काम मैं करता हूं.
I was a student up until very recently. I really want to work and do something for my people because they have given me this opportunity. They have elected me.
सोचा नहीं था कि राज्यसभा सांसद बनूंगी.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
NDTV shines with 38 prestigious wins at the News Television Awards 2024. Powerful journalism to cutting-edge digital innovation, production excellence to regional leadership. NDTV sets the benchmark. 38 awards, each a testament to your trust in NDTV. NDTV stands for trust. NDTV proudly upholds its legacy of trust and credibility. According to the prestigious Reuters Institute's Digital News Report 2024, NDTV is the top-most news platform in the country. Number one in both online and offline reach in India, beating all its competition. NDTV stands for trust.
New day, new show, a new experience. Start your day with the news, not views. We bring you stories that matter and impact your lives. News that informs and keeps you ahead.
From Maximum City, Mumbai,
To the seat of governance, Delhi, NDTV brings to you the best breakfast show. The breakfast show only on NDTV 24/7 every morning at 8 a.m. Mahakumbh, a festival of
Well, a top general in charge of Russian nuclear protection forces, I beg your pardon, has been killed along with an aide by a bomb hidden in an electric scooter in Moscow, according to Russia's investigative committee. A source in the security service of Ukraine says the agency claims responsibility for the killing of Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, but Ukraine has yet to officially comment. Take a look at the developments in the past few hours.
In a rare targeted assassination unlike any other seen in the over 2-year-long Russia-Ukraine war, Kyiv killed Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, chief of Russia's nuclear forces, along with his assistant after a bomb went off at the entrance to his home in Moscow. One of the most senior Russian military officers to be killed in the conflict, Igor was accused of using chemical weapons and was sanctioned by several countries, including the UK and Canada. Often referred to as one of the most significant mouthpieces of the Russian propaganda machinery, Igor was the most prominent face to publicly accuse Kyiv of plotting to use chemical weapons and develop a nuclear dirty bomb. Igor was murdered a day after Ukrainian state persecutors were reported to have charged him in absentia with the alleged use of banned chemical weapons. The Russian nuclear chief was also hit with UK sanctions in October this year for the deployment of barbaric chemical weapons in Ukraine, including the toxic choking agent chloropicrin. Reacting to his assassination, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer reiterated his commitment to support Ukraine.
You comfortable with the assassination, though?
Well, as I say, we must stand with Ukraine. I think that's a developing situation, but this morning's discussion was very clear about the strategic need for NATO to stand as we do with Ukraine in this critical period.
A major hit to Putin that could further weaken morale within Russian troops. Kyiv's latest targeted assassination is likely to open up a new phase in the conflict as fighting escalates in the long grinding war. The Kremlin has vowed to take revenge for Igor's murder, leaving Ukraine's military and political leadership in imminent threat of retaliation. All eyes will be on the Russian president to see how he responds to this significant hit to the Russian establishment. With Disha Bakchi, Bureau Report, NDTV World.
Well, the other big story we're tracking, the Philippines has ratified a new defense pact with Japan that would allow each country's military to deploy on each other's soil amid increased regional tensions with China. The agreement between the two countries was signed in July over shared concerns about China's growing assertiveness in the region and also confrontations between Philippine and Chinese naval vessels. This is in the contested areas of the South China Sea. China, as you know, claims much of the South China Sea, a key focal point for global shipping. But these claims are disputed by Brunei, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam. For further clarity on the matter, we have with us Don McLean-Gill. As always, Don, thanks so much for joining us on NDTV. In terms of mutual benefit, Don, both the Philippines and Japan, we know, are facing security challenges in the region. But what are the key benefits for each side in this agreement? And how does it enhance their defense capabilities? And what specific threats are they preparing to address together?
All right. So first of all, thank you so much for having me, Parmeshwar. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Now, the RAA is in fact an important cornerstone in the deepening security partnership between the Philippines and Japan. Now, the Philippines has a visiting forces agreement with the United States. It has a status of forces agreement with Australia. And now it has a reciprocal access agreement with Japan. Now, what the RAA does is that it expedites any form of military-to-military engagement between Philippine and Japanese forces in a manner that was not seen in the previous years or previous decades. So this would significantly bolster the capacity of both states to deploy at a timely fashion collaborative activities and collaborative exercises which are crucial, in times of crisis. So the time and the element of the timing and the allowance of course, more sophisticated activities, joint activities, make the RAA an important cornerstone in Philippine national security policy. And more importantly, this integrates well within the overarching interests of the Philippines to deepen its position within the existing hub and spoke network between the US, Japan, and Australia.
Right.
So in that regard, that is complementary.
Don, how significant would you say this new defense pact is in terms of regional security, which you briefly touched upon, but especially concerning China's growing assertiveness in the South China Sea?
Well, the Philippines and Japan are in fact at the receiving end of Chinese expansionism and belligerence. The Philippines and Japan are two critical areas of the first island chain to which China seeks to project power in. And this is, of course, with the purpose of disrupting the security architecture there. So with the Philippines and Japan enhancing cooperation based on shared threats and threat perceptions, but also common regional interests and goals, this is important because China has always pursued unilateralism in the Western Pacific. It has gained considerably without the overt use of military force through salami slicing. The divide and conquer approach is in fact very important in China's power projection. So if we have the Philippines and Japan, two important players in the first island chain, coordinate and consolidate effort, that would make it more difficult for Beijing to penetrate.
As always, Don, thanks so much for sharing your insights and joining us on NDTV.
Thank you, Parmeshwar.
Well, let's turn our attention now to the United States. Luigi Mangione, accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, has been indicted for murder. This is in Manhattan. Mangione faces 11 charges, including first-degree murder and a murder as an act of terrorism. The indictment alleges that he killed Thompson to influence the policy of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion. In other news, French authorities have announced an overnight curfew in Mayotte as they sought to stabilize the island country in the aftermath of Cyclone Chido, which is the most intense storm to hit the area in 90 years. The French military has said it is sending 4 to 5 planes a day. This has up to 50 tons of assistance, including food, water, as well as medicine. But hundreds of military personnel have arrived since the weekend in Mayotte, an island group of Africa that is France's poorest territory. Meanwhile, 2 US astronauts, Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore, have been stranded on the International Space Station for months, as we've been informing you. But NASA has now announced that they will remain there until at least late March due to a delay in their return mission. In fact, Wilmore and Williams arrived at the ISS in June aboard Boeing Starliner spacecraft. Their mission was originally planned to last just 8 days. However, problems with the Starliner's propulsion system forced NASA to change the plan, and they are now expected back to touch down on planet Earth in about 3 months. As always, thank you so much for investing your time in watching this edition of The World 24/7. We'll keep tracking the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.
We are able to maintain the democratic fabric and the democratic system.
I want to do something that can make a difference.
लगातार जनता की आवाज को सरकार तक पहुंचाने का काम मैं करता हूं.
I was a student up until very recently. I really want to work and do something for my people because they have given me this opportunity. They have elected me.
सोचा नहीं था कि राज्यसभा सांसद बनूंगी.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of maximum city is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
NDTV shines with 38 prestigious wins at the News Television Awards 2024. Powerful journalism to cutting-edge digital innovation, production excellence to regional leadership. NDTV sets the benchmark. 38 awards, each a testament to your trust in NDTV. NDTV stands for trust. NDTV proudly upholds its legacy of trust and credibility. According to the prestigious Reuters Institute's Digital News Report 2024, NDTV is the top-most news platform in the country. Number one in both online and offline reach in India. Beating all its competition, NDTV stands for trust.
New day, new show, a new experience. Start your day with the news, not views. We bring you stories that matter and impact your lives. News that informs and keeps you ahead.
From maximum city, Mumbai,
To the seat of governance, Delhi, NDTV brings to you the best breakfast show. The breakfast show only on NDTV 24/7 every morning at 8 a.m. Mahakumbh, a festival of faith. The world's biggest spiritual festival. The divine dip at the spiritual Sangam. A sacred confluence of faith, culture and heritage. NDTV's mega coverage of the Mega Fest. NDTV at Mahakumbh 2025.
We are able to maintain the democratic fabric and the democratic system.
I want to do something that can make a difference.
लगातार जनता की आवाज को सरकार तक पहुंचाने का काम मैं करता हूं.
I was a student up until very recently. I really want to work and do something for my people because they have given me this opportunity. They have elected me.
ये सोचा नहीं था कि राज्यसभा सांसद बनूंगी.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our
A very good morning. You're watching The Breakfast Show here on NDTV 24/7. We have a whole lot lined up for you, including China is saying that they're ready to work with India in order to improve bilateral relationships and bring it back on track in order to settle differences with sincerity and in good faith. We'll get you that and a whole lot more. First, let's get you the headlines. In the winter session, a showdown as far as the One Nation, One poll is concerned, and that'll be sent to the JPC. While the Congress is yet to give its name, but the JPC chairman is going to be from the BJP. Jammu and Kashmir's Chief Minister Omar Abdullah is going to be meeting Home Minister Amit Shah here in the National Capital.